Hello, welcome to my 1 year in recovery Q&A. My name is Emily. You may also know me as @emilyfindsfreedom on Instagram, and I also have a podcast called the Freedom Diaries podcast that you can listen to on Spotify. I am so excited to be back and filming another YouTube video. It has been a while and I really want to get back into posting, but sometimes life is busy and it gets in the way, and that's alright. But I am sitting outside on a gorgeous summer afternoon and I'm really soaking in the sun. I asked you guys on my Instagram some questions after being in recovery for 1 year. I literally cannot believe it. I feel like I've come so far and I'm just so incredibly proud of myself and grateful for recovery because it's honestly opened up my world. Like, I'm gonna be moving to London in like a week and a half. Like, that's crazy. A little life update while I'm here. How have I been doing recently? I've been doing good. Obviously things come in ups and downs, but I've been like enjoying spending time with friends and family, especially before I leave. I've been working. I work at a little cafe at the moment. I've been enjoying swimming in the sea. I'm such a water baby. Like, I feel like such a mermaid. I love swimming in the sea. I love swimming in the pool. I love the water. It's magical. I want to get back into my reading era, but enough chitter chatter. Let's get on with the Q&A. Okay, so the first question is, what is my proudest achievement in recovery? It's so hard to tell you because honestly, recovery has brought me so many things and like, it's hard to pick just one. I would say the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that I have opened up my own life, and I think one of my proudest achievements is actually taking recovery into my own hands and discharging myself from a team that wasn't really helping me and finding someone that did. And I worked with a psychologist who specializes in eating disorders, and she's helped me a lot, but inevitably it was actually me and my choices and my actions that created the change, and I was the agent of change in my recovery journey. And that's actually the only way you can truly get better, because you can only really have so much support from other people before you need to take action on it yourself, and you need to be your own cheerleader. And I think one of my proudest things is that I chose recovery and I put the effort in and I put the work in. But also things like managing to go back to school. It's just like, I love my life now. Like, I love it so much, and I'm about to make a big change. I'm about to move overseas, but I'm still really enjoying, like, even though my anxiety is high recently, I'm still really enjoying the day-to-day life that I've created for myself, and that's all thanks to the decisions I made. Okay, the next question is, did I experience extreme hunger? And if so, what was my experience with it? I am going to be completely honest and open and say that I have experienced extreme hunger, but only to a very minimal degree, and I know that many other people go through it a lot worse than I have, but I think it's still important to bring attention to the fact that not everybody is going to go through the exact same thing, and eating disorders come in all shapes and sizes, so therefore you can't possibly compare your experience to someone else. Your experience is still valid. I have experienced extreme hunger, and at the time I didn't actually recognize that I was, and I think it's because I almost didn't count it as it, if you know what I mean. When your eating disorder gets in your head, it convinces you that you aren't quote unquote sick enough, and in some instances it convinces you that you haven't experienced something to a really severe degree, therefore you haven't experienced it at all, and you know, your suffering isn't valid, which is obviously a lie. But at different points in my recovery, I would say the first month or so, I wasn't having any hunger cues because I'd lost my hunger signals, but I was experiencing extreme mental hunger, and extreme hunger can come in any form. If you don't know what extreme hunger is, it is a really intense craving for a certain food or a lot of food after you've had a prolonged period of restriction, and it's just your body trying to make up for all the energy that it lost over that time, and it's a completely natural response. In my first month of recovery, I did experience a lot of extreme mental hunger. That was because I was finally allowing myself to eat the things that I denied myself. I finally ate the chocolate. I finally ate, all of the things that I thought that I was never going to eat again. And then obviously I wanted a lot of it. And I think it prolonged itself. I've still been eating lots of chocolate, and I think it really hit me at certain points in the month where I'd be like, I just want more chocolate, I just want more chocolate. Or I'm just using chocolate as an example, but it happened with other foods as well, where I'd just eat a lot, and I might not even fancy it, but I'd still keep eating because I really wanted that chocolate, and I denied myself that chocolate for a long period of time. So of course my body wanted to make up for it. I've dealt with a side of extreme hunger in the emotional eating side, where I would say towards the end of last year, I experienced a little wave of depression, and it wasn't fun, but I just found myself not being able to get out of bed, and one of my coping mechanisms at the time was emotional eating, and I would class it under extreme hunger because I was eating when I wasn't really hungry, but I had finally allowed myself to have something that I hadn't allowed myself in a while. But no matter what experience you've had, whether you've had extreme hunger, whether you haven't, whether you recognized you had extreme hunger at the time or you didn't, it's still valid. Yeah, it's been a rough journey, but I've made it to this point, and at this point in time I'm currently not experiencing extreme hunger, or I'm not emotional eating. I'm just being really intuitive, and I'm listening to my body, and I just feel like I'm in the best place I've ever been. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, so the next question asks, do you still get triggered by nutritional numbers? And this question specifically asked on menus. Now, I will say that I did go through a very obsessive time in my eating disorder where I was counting calories and using tracking apps, and it was just really toxic. So because of my experience with it, yes, I would say nutritional numbers still trigger me. I would say that I no longer look at them. I avoid them as much as I can. I don't look at labels on packets or anything. And I'm very thankful that in New Zealand we actually don't have the nutritional numbers of calories and things on our menus. But I know when I go to the UK it's going to be different, and there will be calories on menus. This is something I'm still yet to overcome, but I'm trying to remind myself that the number doesn't mean anything, and no matter if the number's big or small, it's just food, and food is energy, and food is fuel, and food is experiences, and it's culture, and it's tradition, and it's all of the good things in life. That's something that I'm a bit worried about going to the UK, having the whole nutritional value on the menu of all the food. But I think a way I'm gonna try and help myself with that is by, arriving at a restaurant and just saying, hey, do you have a calorie-free menu? Or asking someone I'm with, hey, would you mind just scribbling out the calories on this menu, or just reading me the options? Because there are so many ways that you can go about it to try and avoid that trigger. But obviously one day I hope that it doesn't affect me at all, but at this point in time it still does. So I'm still gonna have to be careful to protect my peace and make sure that those types of things don't affect me. And healing takes time, so that's completely okay. And if you didn't struggle with that, that's completely okay too. Excuse the wind, by the way. I'm hoping that the audio is still okay. The next question is, how did you cope with dealing with body changes in recovery, and do you have any tips for it? Obviously, this is a very hard thing to deal with, and I will say that you don't have to be underweight to be deserving of recovery. You don't have to be hospitalized. You don't have to get to a certain point. You don't have to feel bad, to feel low at your worst to deserve to recover. You always deserve to recover. That's a fact. Body changes are really hard. In my experience, it was gaining weight, but it could be different for you. I found it really hard. And how did I cope with it? It was mainly my motivation and holding myself accountable that got me through it. It was reminding myself of what I was working towards, and I was working towards a free life, and I wanted to get better, and if I didn't grow into a bigger body, I wasn't going to grow into a bigger life. And those two things coexisted, and I knew that a smaller body was still going to keep me stuck, because there was a long period of time that I lied to myself and I convinced myself that I could just recover mentally and not physically. But that's just not true, and you can't recover physically and not mentally either. There was points in time where I was physically healthy, but mentally I was still just as ill. Those two, physical and mental recovery, they go hand in hand, they have to work together. I would say it was just accepting that I had to grow, and growing wasn't a bad thing. My body needed to heal, my mind needed to heal, and for that to happen, I had to gain weight. And it was painful and it was excruciating and it was really hard, but my worst days in recovery were a million times better than my best days in my eating disorder, because your eating disorder, that's not even a real life. That's just merely surviving. That's not living. It takes time, but some of my things that helped me to cope were things like getting rid of clothes that no longer fit, or getting rid of clothes that I didn't really like anymore or didn't feel comfortable wearing. Making sure that I covered my mirrors so I didn't have to look at myself in them. That really helped, because body checking, I did not want to be doing that. I stopped body checking. I deleted all apps that I had. I no longer wore a watch. I don't know my weight. I don't want to know my weight. Letting go of the number was the best thing that ever happened to me. And just all sorts of things along those lines, because your weight doesn't define your worth. How you look doesn't define your worth. People don't love you for how you look, they love you for who you are. It's the thing that really holds people back from choosing recovery, is the fear of weight gain, and it held me back for the longest time. Once you do start gaining weight, and once you do push through those really hard times, there's going to be so much colour and light and beauty on the other side, and you just have to keep on going through it, because once you're out the other side, life actually isn't bad at all. Gaining weight is gaining life. Another point I'll just quickly add on to this: your body, it's always going to be changing. Your body will fluctuate throughout your entire life. When you're 60, you're not going to look the same as when you're 16. Body changes are completely natural, and they're human, and they're what makes the world and life so beautiful. And you need to remember that, because if you try and stay in your 16-year-old sick body for your whole life, you're not going to live a full life, and you're going to spend your life just wasting time. Think about the things that actually matter in your life and align your values with that. The next question is tips for dealing with compulsive movement and exercise, and how did you get through it? Now, I will say that this was a big part of my eating disorder. I really did struggle with compulsive movement, and I think that this is one of the biggest things that I really had to try and rewire my brain to be able to, take time off and rebuild a healthy relationship with movement back. Because if your intentions to move your body are out of fear that if you don't, you'll gain weight, or you'll be lazy or unproductive, and all of these are in quotations, then that's not the right sort of movement, and you shouldn't be moving your body in that way, because your intention behind movement is the thing that matters the most. It is, are you moving out of self-punishment, or are you moving out of self-compassion? So I really had to know and learn to separate an eating disorder thought from an Emily thought. What's my intention behind my movement? If I felt like, okay, I want to go for a walk in nature, was that the eating disorder being like, you're lazy, you need to go for a walk, you need to burn this off or whatever? Or was it Emily going, actually, I would really like to have a really nice mindful walk in nature and listen to a podcast, And sometimes, especially in the initial stages of recovery, it is so hard to separate those two things. But the way that I did it was just stopping my movement and my compulsions basically completely at first, so that I could take that time to let my body heal and let my mind heal before I got back into anything that was going to trigger me to spiral backwards. It's also introducing movement slowly. I started off with gentle walks in nature, and then I did some yoga, and yoga's been so helpful in my healing journey because it's really taught me to be mindful and be in tune with myself and listen to my body and feel how my body feels when I'm moving it. And then when you feel like, firstly, you're physically in a better place, making sure that you're mentally in a good place, then it's introducing those things that maybe you've missed doing, or maybe those things that are a little bit more intense. I have been very careful with introducing movement, and I've done it in a really kind way towards myself. If I'm tired, I'm not going to move my body, I'm going to rest. If I feel energized, I will move my body, but I'll listen to it, and if I want to stop, I will stop. And I always make sure I'm fueling myself and I'm giving myself permission to rest and to eat. I found that I've really fallen in love with movement and exercise again in such a loving way. Like, my intentions now are to feel strong and to feel good and to energize myself and uplift myself and like feel good in my own skin and get those endorphins. And it actually is possible to heal your relationship with movement. Like, I always thought that I'd be stuck and that I'd always exercise to punish myself and to change my body. But that's just not true. It's about really trying to listen to your thought versus the ED thought. It's okay if you slip up. So don't beat yourself up if you make a mistake. It's not you going backwards. You can still get back up and you can try again the next day, because the more that you challenge, repeat, and you push through and you fight against those thoughts, the easier things will get, the better you will be, and the more open your world and your life will be. Okay, so the next question is, what do you do on days where you don't feel like getting out of bed? I went through a rough patch. I dropped down into a bit of depression. I've struggled with depression and anxiety as well as my eating disorder, and sometimes it's worse than others. And a couple of months ago I did go through a little rough patch, and I found myself finding it hard to get out of bed, and that was completely okay. And it's inevitable that you're gonna go through waves, you're gonna go through seasons. Sometimes your mood's gonna be happy and excited and positive, and then sometimes you're gonna feel more down. So what I do on days where I don't feel like getting out of bed, and I'm really thankful at the moment I'm not experiencing this, but I know that I probably will again. So this is for my future self and for anyone else who is struggling out there. On the days where I didn't feel like getting out of bed, some days I did give in. Some days I did stay in bed all day. Some days I felt sorry for myself and I thought that I'd quote unquote wasted the day. But that's not true. That's just not true at all. Sometimes you do have to give yourself full permission to stay in bed all day, if that is the right thing for you in that moment. If you are burnt out, if you're exhausted, if you need some me time, some restful time, a relaxing day to just be in bed, you're allowed to. There's nothing wrong with it. You can give yourself permission to stay in bed if that's what you need. But then there are other days that I experienced where I knew that staying in bed wasn't the best option for me. I knew it was a way of avoiding the things that made me anxious. I knew it was a coping mechanism and something that was going to make me feel worse rather than better. And so on days like that, I really had to think about, okay, what are the options, pros and cons? I can get out of bed, I can do something, and it might make me feel better. Or I can stay in bed, wallow in my own sadness, and probably feel worse. You can say to yourself, hey, it's okay that I'm feeling sad, but there are a list of things that I can do to help myself feel better. And this is where you've already written a list. So first, you're going to write yourself a list. A list, things that make me feel good. And it could be having a shower. It could be going out in the fresh air. It could be reading a book. It could be meeting up with a friend. It could be dancing to some music. Anything that makes you feel good. It's about writing that list. And then when you are in that low place, it's looking at the list and thinking, okay, what is the easiest thing for me to do on this list right now that's just going to help me feel a little bit better? And it could be just getting out of bed and brushing your teeth. and then you might feel a little bit better. You might feel like you have the motivation in you to do something more with your day. Or perhaps it hasn't changed your mood that much, and that's okay too. It's not about flicking the switch completely and making you feel, 100 times better. It's just taking action to do something to take care of yourself, which matters the most. The next question is, how did you learn to love yourself in recovery? I would say that it's a constant journey. Although I do really love myself, I would say I do love myself, sometimes it's harder to love myself than others, and it's a constant journey, and it's not an easy thing to do, because when you've gone from hating yourself so much to now loving yourself, those two things are completely opposite. And so it is a journey, and it's up and down and up and down. But I will say I'm in a place now where I feel so much more in love with myself than I ever have. And I think it's because I've put the work in, and I'm accepting myself as I am. I'm accepting this is my body. My body is my vessel. It is my home. It's keeping me alive. I don't need to change it. I don't need to punish it. I don't need to force myself to do anything I don't want to. There are so many different parts of my life outside of my eating disorder that I didn't even know existed. Like, I have relationships with people, I have so many friendships, I have passions like yoga and my accounts and podcasts and everything, and so many more things that I can pour my energy into than restriction and compensation. The journey of self-acceptance and self-love is definitely something that is hard, and it can take time, and I'm not all the way there yet, but I am in a place where I can accept myself and I can say, hey, this is my body. Yes, I struggle with my body image sometimes, and I have bad body image days. It doesn't mean that I won't have good days again. I actually posted recently a little post about things that I love about myself, and I think that actually opened my eyes to how amazing I am. So maybe I'll set you all a little challenge to write a list of things you love about yourself, and you could post it on Instagram, and you could tag me. I just really think that would be cute. We all have so much about ourselves that makes us different and special and beautiful and loved by others, and then ourselves as well. We deserve to love ourselves because we are special, all in our own different ways. That's a little challenge for you. Write down a list of things you love about yourself. Some other things that have helped me are saying affirmations. I listen to body confidence hype up playlists on Spotify. I dance to the music. I shimmy. I wear outfits that actually make me feel confident and comfortable. I like to do my makeup in a nice way, put some glittery eyeshadow on. Just things that spice up my life and make me feel confident in who I am. And surrounding yourself with people that lift you up rather than bring you down, and hype you up too, because you deserve a little hype up bestie. This is a quick question, but food that I've rediscovered that I've loved. Now, okay, I'm gonna list them off. It's gonna be like bang bang bang. Peanut butter, pancakes, granola, pizza, yogurt bowls. My yogurt bowls are like the best thing in the world, and I could probably come up with so much more, like ice cream and like chocolate and like everything. Basically all the things that I didn't allow myself to have, I now do, and I have them whenever I want them, and there's no restriction, there's no compensation. I eat a variety of things. There is no food that is inherently good or bad. No food is healthy or unhealthy. Health is subjective to the individual, and I've come to learn that. And I've also come to learn that everybody needs different amounts of food, and so I can't compare what I eat to somebody else. Another question I got is, how did you get your period back, and did you lose your period? And firstly, big disclaimer, not everyone who suffers with an eating disorder loses their period. In my personal experience I did, but it doesn't make me more valid. It doesn't make you any less valid if you haven't. Everyone struggles with an eating disorder differently, but that doesn't mean that anyone's better or worse than each other. Eating disorders are just so competitive, and it's so frustrating and annoying, but I just have to say that disclaimer. Personally for me, I did lose my period for around like 2.5 years. That was because of my eating disorder, and also stress and anxiety and all of these things, and I have now got it back, I'm very happy to say. I'm actually on my period now. The way that I did that was obviously resting and eating, but also I found that the more that I grew into a new version of myself, a happier version of myself, a version of myself with a personality and a bigger life and friendships and other things to put my intention into, like, the less my body stressed and the more it began to heal and relax. And then that's when my period came back, and it was like, oh my goodness, I've actually done it. Like, my body is healing, it is on its journey, and I've now had my period back for, oh my goodness, it's been like 6 months now, maybe. I have regular periods now. I feel amazing. I will say that getting your period back can be really hard, and different people will deal with it differently. If you've lost your period and then gotten it back, sometimes it can be really tricky, because sometimes your eating disorder can tell you that you're no longer quote unquote sick. It demonizes it. And I'm here to tell you that what your eating disorder is telling you, not true at all. Getting your period back, it's an amazing achievement. You are now growing into your happy body, and your happy body will now be able to have children if you want children. It will now be able to function properly. You'll have a sex drive back. You'll have, the right hormone levels. You'll be able to be more yourself and walk around. And in my experience, I like being a woman. It's me being a woman. I was actually just over the moon in my experience. I was just so happy, because it was something that I was working towards for the longest time. It was just such an amazing moment for me. It was such a win. And if that's not the same for you, then that's okay. It's still a win. And if it doesn't feel like it, I'm sending so much love. I know it's hard, but remember that it's bringing you towards a freer and happier life, and it's such a positive thing. Next door neighbour decided to make an appearance outside, so I've moved inside. When I say next door neighbour, I mean 2 little kids are playing on the trampoline next door, making a lot of noise. So obviously we are moving inside, but I'm going to answer 2 more questions, then I'm going to sign off. Second to last question is, how are you doing now? I am actually doing really good. Like, I have noticed that recently, because I'm about to make a big life change, I'm about to move overseas, my eating disorder voice has ramped up a bit, and I've recognized it, and I can tell that it's come up a bit in volume, but I'm at a place now where I know I'm not going back, and I know I'm not giving in to those thoughts, and I'm not taking action on anything that it says. So the place I'm in now is just basically moving forward, moving on with my life. I'm going to continue striving for freedom, for full freedom. Everyone's recovery journey takes a different amount of time, and I'm still recovering, and that's okay. But I am so much better than I ever was like a whole year ago. I can't even believe it. Now the final question is, what are your plans to celebrate your 1 year in recovery? I'm so excited, because I'm going to be going out for a meal with my mum and my brother. We're going out to a restaurant. It's a vegetarian vegan restaurant, and it's going to be so cute. It's by the beach. We're going to enjoy ourselves, and I'm just like so excited. That's about it. I'm going to sign off now, because I've been talking for quite some time. I love you so much, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm really excited to hopefully post some more videos. Thanks for listening. Sending lots of love.